famous actor Robert Deniro says it is impossible to love America right now.
The letter stated, regardless of our political affiliation or whether we engage in politics or not, we all love our country. So when we... Not so fast. The phrase, we all love our country, stuck in my throat. Because our country isn't so lovable right now. I hate to say it, but loving our country is starting to sound like an abused spouse saying they love their abuser.
I'm Caroline Downey of National Review, and let me just say right off the bat that to shun the country that made you rich and famous, pretty tone deaf. But let's go through each accusation that De Niro levels. First, America has waged reckless and deadly wars.
I can't love a country that starts stupid and inhumane wars. Killing thousands of innocents and indirectly causing the deaths and suffering of millions more.
It's true that the Iran conflict we're prosecuting alongside Israel right now doesn't have full public support. That's partially because the Trump administration did not exactly make a clear and compelling case for it out the gate. The justification has changed a few times. And once we did invade, it was pretty obvious that a true transformation of Iran into a nation that we could deal with would require regime change, which, yes, means boots on the ground, something 74% of Americans do not support. But the fact of the matter is that a maniacal, tyrannical, radical Islamist regime in Iran was developing a nuclear weapon, and that threatened us and our allies. So it was not necessarily stupid, as De Niro says, to try to confront that problem before it got past the point of no return, after Iran had already achieved a nuke. This is a regime that has death to America as a key policy. It's understandable to be opposed to bloodshed, especially of civilians, but before we launched this war, Iran was executing thousands of protesters, including women. It punished the demonstrations with mass murder in cold blood, shooting unarmed people and killing somewhere between 7,000 and 35,000. So for De Niro to say this war is inhumane, I mean, that seems pretty inhumane, right? Where is his condemnation of that? The second claim De Niro makes is that America takes healthcare away from millions of people and uses the money to basically enrich a cabal of pedophile elites that he says includes Trump.
I can't love a country that takes healthcare away from millions of people and uses that money to enrich their pals in the Trump Epstein class.
What he's likely referring to here is the big, beautiful bill that passed in 2025, in which Republicans included work requirements for Medicaid. Under the legislation, able-bodied adults, typically age 19 to 64, enrolled in the Obamacare Medicaid expansion, which Biden's Congress approved, must participate in at least 20 hours per week of either paid work, job training, education, or community service. So not strictly employment, but a number of things that contribute to society. The rules include extensive exemptions for certain populations, such as pregnant women, those with disabilities, those who are medically frail, and primary caregivers. So Republicans were just adding a level of accountability to this program. So how else did Republicans steal healthcare from Americans in De Niro's understanding? The big, beautiful bill also scaled back federal funding to states that give Medicaid to illegal aliens. Federal money is not supposed to pay for Medicaid benefits to illegal immigrants, yet 14 states and Washington, D.C. cover them anyway. It seems reasonable that Republicans ended what simply wasn't supposed to be happening anyway. Republicans would also, under the big, beautiful bill, impose a new requirement that states obtain addresses from Medicaid enrollees, which is a bare minimum for stopping fraud. So what's funny about this is, Republicans could have tried to chainsaw entitlements in this bill, but they decided against that because Trump generally likes them and he knows that slashing them outright is unpopular with both parties. The tweaks were so small to the program that they basically didn't alter the spending trajectory at all. Now, in total, the Republicans' cuts will result in 7.6 billion fewer individuals being insured by 2034. But there's necessary context here. Over the past decade, thanks largely to Obamacare, Medicaid has grown by a staggering 22 million people to over 78 million. That's more than double the 37 million Americans living in poverty, by the way, and Medicaid is intended for those of low income. This increase has largely been driven by able-bodied adults receiving benefits. Under current law, the federal government will spend about $8.6 trillion on Medicaid over the next decade. Under the Republican bill, Medicaid spending will still grow. Don't get me wrong, it's still gonna grow on autopilot, and Washington would still allocate $7.9 trillion to the program. That's a pretty marginal change. In fact, it was so insignificant that some fiscal hawks in Congress and Elon Musk came out against the big beautiful bill because it didn't make a dent in the federal debt. So for Robert De Niro to say that Republicans are ripping health insurance away from deserving, struggling Americans is just hyperbolic and doesn't comport with the data and the reality of this program that has become a boondoggle over progressive administrations. Now, the next thing De Niro says is that he can't love a country with ICE, with immigration enforcement, claiming that they are terrorizing citizens and torturing our neighbors, by which he means illegal aliens.
I can't love a country that sends out masked militias to shoot citizens in the streets, torture our neighbors, and separate families.
Now, illegal immigrants may live next door to some American citizens in more average areas of the country or border states like Texas, but they certainly don't live by De Niro, unless they're his staff, which is quite possible. He reportedly lived in an extensive, heavily private 98-acre estate in upstate New York. While it was a tragedy that any American citizens were shot and killed during the ICE protests, at least the death of Renee Nicole Good was predictable because of the confrontational style of demonstration and agitation that she was trained into under ICE Watch. Now, that organization explicitly called for disrupting ICE raids in Minnesota and across the country. The leftist strategy of direct action protest against an agency that was simply fulfilling its responsibility to apprehend, detain, and deport illegal aliens, that was likely to produce more dangerous and possibly deadly encounters. Sure, you could argue that these large-scale deportations that the Trump administration started with, they require a lot of law enforcement interaction with people who very much don't want to be apprehended. Some of them are violent, some are just desperate. That greatly increases the odds of violence. You could also argue that ICE staffed up too quickly and maybe recruited inadequately trained people. But Renee Good actively tried to make herself a target for an ICE agent. Nor was her death the result of poor training, because the agent who fired the shots had reportedly been with ICE for 10 years and was assigned to an elite tactical unit. He was an experienced agent who had previous experience with vehicle stops, including one last year in which he was dragged by a vehicle. That doesn't place him above criticism for how he conducted that incident, but it does suggest that those decisions were not the result of inexperience or bad training or hasty recruitment within the past year.
For most of my life, of course, I did love this country, the United States of America. Welcomed my immigrant ancestors. It gave me, my family, and my fellow citizens such rich opportunities and extraordinary freedoms. I want to love my country again. I want my country back. That's why I stand with the Committee for the First Amendment. And you, all of you. Together we rise up, we sing out, we keep organizing, and we fall in love again. Thank you.
He's doing the classic leftist trick of conflating legal and illegal immigration. Robert De Niro is Italian. Many of his ancestors were also Italian. Robert De Niro's paternal great-grandparents, Giovanni De Niro and Angelina Mercurio, emigrated from Verrazzano, Italy, and arrived in the United States in 1887. Because Ellis Island wasn't actually open until 1892, they actually passed through its predecessor, Castle Garden, which is located at the tip of Manhattan. What De Niro's ancestors did to come into America is not the same as coming across the southern border illegally. Also, De Niro is basically saying that his love for America is conditional on whether the party he supports is in control. If you only love your country when you're in power, You just love power, not your country. Sorry, I don't make the rules. I'm Caroline Downey of National Review. Thank you so much for watching. Cheers and take care.